Expedite, the pre-workout, is designed to really help you get through those moments where you feel a little fatigued. Sometimes your body does get a little tired, gets a little sore. With this kind of stuff, it picks you right back up.
Firstly, 3 months ago, PBC, America had all the heavyweight belts, and now Great Britain has all the heavyweight belts in Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. The conversations have been ongoing. I spoke to Bob Arum probably half an hour ago. I think the biggest issue to sort out now is Deontay Wilder. If there's a deal to be done where Deontay Wilder makes way for a Joshua Fury undisputed fight, we are absolutely all in for that fight. We're closing, and just recently closed a couple of minutes ago, the Pulev fight for June 20. But we know that Pulev is also promoted by Bob Arum. So there is a deal that can be worked there. For me, if there's no step aside, if you like, let Wilder and Fury go again in July. We'll box on June 20th, and then we can agree now, we can sign now for the undisputed fight in December of this year.
Joe Markovsky, you worked so hard last year to try to get Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua into the ring. Does a Tyson Fury-Joshua fight excite you as much?
Absolutely. It's the biggest fight, arguably, in world boxing. To Eddie's point, British heavyweights going at it. It's huge globally. Tyson Fury's done a hell of a job promoting himself in the US. Incredible performance last weekend, and that fight's huge globally, especially in the US and the UK, for sure.
And Joe Parker, you were sitting ringside for that fight in Las Vegas. Just give me your impressions about what you saw.
It was a fantastic performance by Tyson Fury. There was no secret. He said he was going to come out and push him back and throw punches and get him out of there. So I think he was telling the public that he was going to knock him out round 2. When I went and saw him, he said around 6 or 7. So
what did you think of those tactics, Gary? I thought it was madness.
I thought it was. I didn't think he was going to, execute it, but it was madness. He was fighting fire with fire. It was a great job by him.
Mm-hmm. You obviously shared the ring with Anthony Joshua. You know Tyson Fury well, having just watched him. How do you think a fight like that goes?
Go on, be honest.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Listen, I think it'll be a great fight. I think it's a fight that we should make happen. I think everyone wants to see who the best heavyweight in the world is, and I'll have to side with Fury on that one. Sorry, team.
Tough things to say. I'm curious, Joe. You suffered your first loss in a fight with Anthony Joshua. Deontay just suffered his first loss. From a fighter's perspective, how difficult is that to get past?
It's not. When you go out there, you've given it everything in camp and you've given it everything in the ring. Well, at the time, you just have to accept it. I think acceptance and build on it, and come back stronger. And I think Deontay should take some time off, relax with his family, and come back stronger.
Devin, you're undefeated, but what do you think of the mindset that seems to be throughout boxing right now? Everybody seems to be determined to protect that record. Sometimes when it stops big fights from being made.
Yeah, with boxing now, the O is almost the most important thing. And one thing I don't like is that once you take a loss, that the boxing fans seem to count you out, and that's not what it should be about. It should be about the best fighting the best, the best fights happening, and if you take a loss, it's okay, but being able to bounce back and understand that someone put on a great fight and to not count them out.
Yeah, and look, we have a fight happening April 17th that kind of reflects that. We have Regis Prograis and Maurice Hooker, Eddie, two guys that have taken losses in the last year, but both still top-tier guys. No belts on the line in a fight like that, but I think that's the kind of fight that boxing needs. Two elite top 5 fighters in that weight class, going at it without a belt.
Yeah, and I think that's a good example of where the belt doesn't matter. You've got 2 guys that were former world champions, both attempted to unify, both fell short, and now the actual unified champions are in mandatory bouts that no one wants to see. So these guys kind of take the ball by the horns and say, no, well, let's us fight, and let's us establish ourselves as the major player in the division. Regis Prograis against Mo Hooker is a great fight. He's a man that one day might be fighting the winner of those when he moves up to 140 inevitably at some time. And it's a great 50-50 pick-em fight. Regis Prograis is coming off a Fight of the Year contender against Josh Taylor, having just lost narrowly, and jumped straight back into a 50-50 fight. Most guys, and sometimes this frustrates us, and especially the broadcaster, where a guy will say, yeah, we want a comeback fight, we want a warm-up fight. No one wants to watch warm-up fights. Fans, even me, especially the broadcaster. Sometimes we understand that they're part of the game. But for guys that are willing to go from big fight to big fight to big fight, they get the respect of their fans, they put bums on seats, people want to tune in to watch them. And if they're good enough, they're going to get right back to the top of the tree ASAP.
Joe,
I think it's a great time to be a heavyweight. The heavyweight division's on fire. I'm right up there, ranked number 2, and I consider myself one of the best in the world. So I have to take care of business this weekend, and then it's up to Eddie to lock in a big fight. Absolutely. So looking forward to it.
But how are you feeling physically? You come off the spider bite, maybe the worst spider bite I've ever heard of, that cost you a significant fight last year against Derek Chisora. How are you feeling going into this one? And I guess, how do you get back to that top level?
It's 1-0 to the spider.
He's now got a T-shirt with a spider. I mean, we thought that Joseph Parker had the best excuse with the spider bite until Deontay Wilder come along with the ring walk suit, But this was just, from our point of view, just a really depressing moment when this guy trained so hard for the Chisora fight. It was the perfect fight for him, going back to the UK for what would have been his 3rd fight at the time. And when they called me and said about the spider bite they'd picked up in New Zealand, it was a nightmare. And it was one of those where it sounded like the worst excuse in the world, but was absolutely 1 billion% true. And so far, so he's taken it well, and he's now got a new nickname, and all his new apparel is branded up with spiders. So it's a good sign.
I guess you kind of lean into it, Joe, right?
Just got to accept it and go with it. But to answer your question, I'm feeling good. I've trained hard off season. I've been in Vegas for 7 weeks training with Kevin and the team. So I'm ready to go out there and perform well.
Eddie, Joe put the pressure on you to get him back into that picture. How do you get Joe Parker back into that top level?
Well, he's top. I mean, he's number 2 in the WBO. So obviously we have to see what happens with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. What's due is the Kubrat Pulev mandatory in June, and then the Alexander Usyk mandatory in probably November, December. Alexander Usyk is fighting Derek Chisora in May, and anything could happen in that fight. And if AJ vacates that WBO title, if he may have to fight Tyson Fury, it'll be Usyk against Joseph Parker for the world title, which is a great fight. Joseph Parker wants to become a 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, and it's our job with his team to try and put him in those kind of fights. First things first, Shaundell wins us tomorrow night. It's a fight that on paper he should win and win well. In the heavyweight division with 2 guys that can really punch, anything can happen. He's got to be switched on tomorrow night, get the win. I see Joseph Parker as a massive part of the heavyweight division in 2020.
Yeah, certainly former champion. A lot of people still fans of Joseph Parker. I want to ask you one more thing about Fury potentially against Anthony Joshua. I think a lot of media members and fans get tired of writing about the process and how things get derailed by the politics of boxing. Obviously, 2 different promoters involved, 2 different networks involved. How confident are you that if both sides want the fight and can make the fight, you can deliver the fight?
I think history will tell you when there's so much money involved in fights, they naturally happen. You had a fight with Fury and Wilder. You got a guy in Bob Arum and Al Heyman that don't particularly like each other, that have been taking pot shots at each other time and time again. And every now and again, an amount of money presents itself where all of a sudden Bob Arum and Al Heyman become really good friends. And that can happen quite easily. And that can happen with the networks as well. You've got the difference between with Fury and Joshua, with ESPN and DAZN, where you've got one pay-per-view model and another that's a subscription model. And these guys are going to have to sit down with themselves to work that out. It's our job to make the fight. I promise you Anthony Joshua is desperate for this fight. I know Tyson Fury will accept this fight and this challenge. So I'm 100% sure this fight will get made. It's just a case of whether that's going to be this summer, but more likely in December 2020.
Joe, do you share